Welcome to this session on mindfulness and compassion meditations. It's nice to see everyone here near the end of March. Tomorrow is April Fool's Day, so be on guard, be mindful when people are trying to fool you. What we're going to do is a period of mindfulness meditation, which includes grounding practice, a practice called close placement, and then environmental mindfulness. We'll also finish with a little bit of expansive awareness that will lead us into a practice called Tonglen, or sending and taking, and that is a compassion meditation. So I'll talk you through all of these. Hopefully we'll have a couple of minutes at the end for questions and answers. Before we started this, I was visiting with a couple of the participants, and we were talking about mindfulness as being remembering what you're doing, and how often we walk away from our car and think, did I lock the car? Or we leave our house and we think, wait a minute, did I lock the front door? And so the traditional word in the ancient Indian language for mindfulness is sati, and it's translated sometimes as recollection, but that's in formal translations. Informally, basically, it's remembering what you're doing. Do you remember what you just did? Do you remember what you're doing? And can you recollect yourself? That's recollection, when your mind has wandered. So mindfulness is both a state of being. Mindfulness is the state of being fully present to your experience, what you're experiencing internally, of feelings, thoughts, and sensations, what you're experiencing from what appears to be outside of you, what you're seeing, hearing, smelling, from moment to moment to moment, a continual refreshing of mindfulness. We think that the moments are continuous, but really each moment arises on its own with the momentum of the previous moment, but distinct from the previous moment. So we're continually arising in mindfulness in that way. Mindfulness is also the practice, and the practice is an element of vigilance, that we have this capacity to recognize, have I been paying attention to what I had chosen to pay attention to, or was my mind someplace else? Was it wandering? And so we simply, at that moment, and this is the practice, it's really quite simple, and that is, be present to your experience until you're not. And when you're not present to your experience, when you kind of wake up out of that daydream, at that moment you have woken up and you're back. And at that moment you smile, have a sense of humor about the fact that you wandered, and then remember what you were doing. Return to what you had chosen to pay attention to. And that's the simple movement of the practice. The good news is that you don't have to bring yourself back to the present. And this is good news because sometimes mindfulness is presented as come back to the present moment, come back to now. Well, you're already here. Unless you have a time machine, your body is always in the here and now. It is your mind that is a time machine and wanders into the past and future and elsewhere in the present. But as soon as you wake up from that daydream, at that moment, you're already back. So you don't have to come back to the present moment. What you come back to is what you had chosen to pay attention to. Now, we work with the breath a lot for this, for a couple of reasons. One, it's always there and available. It's part of our body, but it also connects us with the environment because we breathe out into the environment, we breathe in from the environment. So it shows our interdependence with our environment. And it is a reflection of our state of mind. When we're uptight, our breath is up and tight. When we're relaxed, our breath is full and slower. So it's a reflection of our mind. The mind and the breath are very much connected. And the breath is a lot like life because you can control it to some extent, but not totally. If I ask you to hold your breath for a few seconds, you can do that. If I ask you to hold your breath for a half an hour, you can't. So most people can't anyway. So that's why we use that as our anchor or reference point. And it has a nice rhythm to it as well. So let's begin, shall we? And then we'll discuss this a little bit more at the end. So take a comfortable posture. You can either sit cross-legged or have your feet planted flatly on the floor, as long as your knees aren't higher than your hips. That puts a little strain on your legs and back. So I have long legs, so I usually cross them in front of me. It's helpful if you're not sitting leaning back, otherwise you tend to fall asleep. So sit up. When I do my business talks, I have people say, now sit up as if you were paying attention. Because we were all taught that when we were kids, sit up and pay attention. So we know how to do that. We don't want our chin floating up because we get spaced out or tucked down or we get sleepy. So you can feel like the back of your neck is extending a little bit upward, and watch what happens when I do that. My chin comes in naturally without having to force anything. Let your arms hang from your sides, and leaving the elbows where they are, swivel your hands palm down on top of your thighs, just behind your knees. And the alternative posture is your palms one on top of the other in your lap, close to your body, palms up in that way, and thumbs just barely touching. You want to breathe in entirely through your nose. And most people breathe in and out through their nose, but if some of the breath comes out through your mouth, that's okay. So that your lips can either be just very lightly touching or even slightly parted. And I'll explain the gaze as we go through the practice, because we're going to start with our eyes closed to get grounded and centered. Just feel your body. Be aware of, you can wiggle your toes and fingers, you can move your legs and arms, you can just move around and inhabit your body. So much of the time we feel like we're just in our heads. Just fully inhabit your body. Feel a couple of breaths go in and out. And then gently scan your body from head to toe, using your awareness to notice if there are areas of tension that are unnecessary to hold your posture. They're kind of residual areas of tension. In your forehead or scalp, cheekbones and jaw. Sometimes we have a lot of tension in our jaw. Just let it soften. Neck and shoulders, often we hold tension there. Just let your shoulders hang naturally. Your neck is upright, but not tense. Only enough tension to hold your posture. Collarbones and shoulder blades, out to the points of your shoulders and your upper arms. Chest and upper back, rib cage all around. Solar plexus, stomach, lower back, and deep belly. We have more tension in our deep belly than we usually realize. Just without, and this is a little challenging sometimes, without losing your posture, just let your deep belly soften and relax. hips and pelvis, thighs, hamstrings, forearms and hands, knees, calves, ankles, and feet. Let your awareness drift down deep into the core of your torso. Let it drift. We usually think of our awareness as behind our forehead. So let your mind drift back and down to the back of your skull and down behind your neck, behind your throat, I mean. Down the back of your neck, behind your chest, just in front of your spine, right in the central channel of your energy of your body. Past your solar plexus, like a leaf settling gently to the bottom of a clear pond. Down deep into the core of your torso, a few inches below your navel, just in front of your spine. Let your awareness rest there. You can feel the movement of your lower torso as the breath goes in and out, filling and emptying, like a gentle current at the bottom of the pond. With each out breath, feel like you're sinking down. Really let yourself sink into your seat. Breathe out and imagine that you're sinking down past your seat, past the floor, and merging with the earth. You're part of the earth. That's how solid and grounded you are. But your posture is upright, like a mountain. Let your breath come and go. We were using the breath to settle ourselves for a bit, but now just let your breath come and go. Be an observer rather than a director. Let it come and go like the wind. And be prepared to notice what's going on in your mind without expectation, without partiality, like the sky that spans and looks over everything on the earth without any bias. Body like a mountain, breath like the wind, mind like the sky. You can let your eyes open just a little bit, maybe halfway. Look downward under your eyelids, out at about a 45-degree angle. And wherever your eyes rest, let them rest in that direction, but don't grasp with your eyes onto what you're looking at. Soften your gaze. And it's more like you're aware of the space that you're sitting in. You can even see your lap and your hands. Aware of your body sitting in the space that you're in. Not too far, just a few feet in each direction. And put your attention on the internal sensation of breathing. Feel your torso fill. It'll feel like it's going all the way deep into your torso. It doesn't matter what's actually happening. That's the feeling, as if you're filling with the breath as you breathe in and emptying as you breathe out. Awareness of your posture, filling with the in-breath, emptying with the out-breath. And we'll do that for a couple of minutes. If your mind wanders off into a daydream, at that moment when you wake up from it, you're already back. Just smile and think, oh, that was someplace else or wandering. Reinvigorate your posture and return your awareness to the feeling of filling and emptying as the breath goes in and out. If you found that your eyes closed and you got a little sleepy, just sit up a little straighter, raise your gaze a little bit, and feel more the upper part of your breathing coming in and out of your nostrils as you fill and empty. If you feel rather scattered, again, lower your gaze very far down, eyes barely open, and feel the deepest part of your torso filling, moving as you fill and empty. And now raise your gaze Look more straight ahead. When you're looking straight ahead, if you feel that you're looking right at your computer screen, you can turn to the side so that you see a little more space. That's fine. Or look above your device. What we just did was called close placement, where we want to hold our attention very close to us. That's why the internal sensation of filling and emptying. And we do that to train our minds to not wander too far and to come back quickly when we call it, when we pull it back like a puppy on a short leash. Having trained our minds that way, now we can do expansive or environmental mindfulness. Again, soften your gaze and open up to your peripheral vision. And in this practice, we let the mind wander, but we let it wander mainly through our perceptions. What we see, hear, feel, smell, taste, and noticing what we think. You have thoughts, but you are not your thoughts. You perceive your thoughts. So if there is a perceiver and thoughts that are perceived, are they the same thing? Notice what's coming up in your mind in the way of thoughts. Notice if it tunes into another perception. The thought might arise, what was that sound? Or, I feel hungry. Or, I never saw that in my room before. Any of those thoughts might lead you to another sense perception. Then look and just be aware of colors, shapes, and shades of light and dark. Or listen for sounds near and far, loud and soft, high and low pitch. Feel sensations inside of you, on the skin of your arms and face. Smells, tastes, any sensations are all happening in the present moment. So let your mind be aware of your environment, internal and external. And again, if a thought captures your mind and takes you away into a daydream, when you wake up from it, just go, oh, daydreaming, and reconnect to your posture first, aware of the breath going out into your environment, and let your mind be with your sense perceptions, one after another. And we'll do that for a couple of minutes. Good. Thank you. Now we're going to do a little version of that as we begin the compassion practice. So those two practices were close placement and environmental mindfulness, or sense perception mindfulness. Right now, I feel like it's important to do compassion practice given all of the chaos and suffering that's happening in the world. That seems rather even exaggerated at this point. Although, it seems like there's always something. We go from war to famine to climate catastrophes to social injustice to illness, just seem to rotate through all of those. But aware of that, there's always someone in the world suffering. There's usually someone in our own sphere. So usually there's some aspect of our own experience that involves suffering. So to begin this practice, it's really important to kind of tune into that in a really physical feeling way. Feel the sadness in your heart when you think of especially the unnecessary suffering that goes on in the world. There's a saying, and it's attributed to many different people, so I don't know who originally said it, but pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So the suffering is what's on top of the pain. But for this practice, for compassion, we're compassion for both the people who are suffering in ordinary pain and the people who are heaping on top of that pain additional suffering for themselves and others. So it's important to rouse the strong intention that you want to be a benefit. You want to help relieve their suffering in whatever way you can. And one of the aspirations that's traditionally spoken is that may I and all beings have access to happiness and the causes of happiness, to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, to find a deeper joy beyond temporary happiness and suffering, and to find a deep, lasting equanimity that transcends attachment, aversion, and ignorance. These are called the four immeasurable minds, or limitless perspectives, because sentient beings are limitless, which means their potential for happiness and their potential for suffering is limitless. So rousing that strong intention, imagine in your heart center, not your physical heart, but your heart center, that's the center of your chest at your heart level, a beautiful clear crystal made of light, or simply an orb, a ball of light. Bright and clear, and it represents your true nature, which has the capacity for wisdom and the capacity for compassion or selfless love. Those capacities have an infinite power to transform negativity so that the practice is, as you breathe in, you gather any negativity into that crystal or light in your heart center. It instantly transforms and you radiate out from there in all directions the positive energy that's the opposite of that negativity. You can imagine the negativity coming in with a texture of heaviness, darkness, like ignorance and stuckness. And it instantly transforms and lightens. Imagine that positive energy radiates out like cool, soothing moonlight. Breathe in and imagine from all directions, from all parts of yourself, any kind of darkness or heaviness or negativity. Feel it as texture first, this dark, heavy quality. Breathe out light and coolness. Start with yourself. Breathe in, breathe out. Radiate out to all parts of your being. And you can identify particular feelings. Breathe in any kind of shame, frustration, anger towards yourself from all parts of your being. Radiate out kindness, patience, acceptance to yourself. Breathe in, giving yourself a hard time. Breathe out forgiveness and kindness to yourself. Think of someone you care about who's experiencing any kind of suffering, physical, mental anguish, illness, and imagine that as you breathe in, you gather that negative energy of theirs into the crystal, into the light in your heart. It transforms and you radiate out to them the opposite, the cool moonlight of kindness that fills their being with peace, happiness, and health. You can have your eyes closed or open, whatever is most comfortable for you. But imagine that loved one of yours that you are taking from them, relieving them of their suffering, and replacing it with relief. If they're confused, breathe in their confusion. Radiate out clarity. If they're fearful, breathe in fear. Radiate out courage. Breathe in unhappiness. It transforms and radiate out happiness to them. You have the infinite capacity to gather in and transform and radiate out that positive energy. Include everyone you know, people you like, and include people you don't like. What is the negativity between the two of you? Gather that in from yourself, from them, from what's in between you, into the crystal in your heart. It transforms and radiate out peace, good communication, acceptance, forgiveness from both directions. If there's anger, breathe in the anger, radiate out the cool moonlight of patience. And now, as best you can, expand that to all beings everywhere. They all have suffering and struggle. They all want peace and happiness. They all go through fear and illness. They all want safety and health. Breathe in from all directions. You can imagine it coming in through all the pores of your body into that crystal, into that light in your heart center, and radiates out from all your pores in all directions, filling the universe with that cool moonlight of kindness that fills all beings with peace, health, and happiness. And now, let go of the visualization. Let go of all the things you're imagining. Return your awareness to your body, to your posture, and back to the internal sensation of filling and emptying for just a few breaths. Good. Thank you. So that's the compassion practice for oneself and for others that can actually make a difference in the world. We can't imagine that our breathing can make a difference to all beings everywhere, but everything's interconnected. So it might be infinitesimal, but it makes a difference. And because we're doing it ourselves, it makes a big difference to everyone we encounter, because we're set with the attitude of intention to wish for ourselves and for them to have peace, health, and happiness and be free from suffering. So I'm going to allow everybody to unmute themselves. And I think you can do it yourself. I'm not sure. So if you have a question, please feel free.
I want to relate something that happened yesterday. I was
Okay,
playing golf, playing very badly.
Can I ask a favor?
Yep,
Can we hold the golf questions for a couple of minutes?
absolutely. But thinking of something positive changed my whole day.
That's wonderful. So we're gonna get to that.
Okay.
But if this has to do with the practice we just did, let's go ahead. Come on, let's
Oh,
do it
me?
now. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just wasn't playing well, couldn't hit anything. In the very last hole, I thought of my grandson who's having a birthday tomorrow, and he melts my heart. Go up, hit the shot, best shot of the whole day. I'm going
That's
to bring
great.
him with me every time I play.
That's wonderful. That really does apply to this because it changes your perspective on the world.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So it melted your heart. And that's the idea of this practice, that it melts your heart. You really feel that connection with others. Now, some people have said, "Oh, well, what do I do with all this bad stuff that I breathed in and collected?" And that's an issue. And that's why when we start this practice, we start with that kind of environmental or expansive awareness, so that we let go of this small version of this is me, and I stop at my skin, and then there's other out there, and I've got to protect myself from that. But when we breathe in, we're breathing other into ourselves. And when we breathe out, we're breathing ourselves out into the world. And we can't really tell where one stops and the other begins. It stops a little later if you've had garlic and onions for lunch, then it keeps being you for a little bit longer. but basically you can't tell the place where it stops. So we feel more connected to the environment. And when we have that attitude, then we understand that what we're breathing into our heart mind. And in the Asian languages, like chitta, the word chitta is Sanskrit, and it represents both heart and mind. In Japan, I think it's kokoro, heart mind, because in the East, thoughts are connected to the body. So they think of thoughts as here, but mind or spirit as here in the heart. So if we feel that in our heart has this infinite capacity. We are really more beings of light than of matter in a certain way. There was a scientist that talked about matter as frozen light. And that's where quantum physics and the wisdom traditions of mindfulness match up. That we can see ourselves as that being of light, and therefore, whatever we breathe in, it doesn't get stuck, but instantly transforms. So that we have that infinite capacity to accept that, because we don't take it personally in the sense of what's in it for me or what's going to be of benefit or harm to me. We just take it in as the energy of the universe, and we transform that negative energy into positive energy and radiate it out. So Barbara, what you said is very, very true. Whatever we're doing, whether it's golf or something else, as we start getting more and more stuck and more self-conscious, everything goes in the wrong direction. Our communication gets worse, our functionality gets worse. But when we let go of that and say, what can I always try to end my phone conversations is there anything else I can do for you? And everything feels good from there. So I think that that's a really important point, and that's what we need. If you've just come on to the Zoom session for the golf Q&A, we're still talking a little bit about mindfulness and compassion. So we'll transition to that in a second. Any other comments or questions about the mindfulness and compassion practices we did? See, that was meditation right there. Open mind, nothing coming to mind. Sometimes we do that as an exercise. We say, okay, now on the count of 3, think of something. I got nothing. And there's a moment where we go, oh, so I'm aware, but I'm not thinking. And that's really helpful to understand that distinction of having thoughts, but you are not your thoughts. But when the thoughts, my teacher said, don't let the thoughts take the shape of your mind. And basically, it's the other way around. When your mind takes the shape of the thoughts, and there's no separation between the two, then the thoughts have captured your mind. But when thoughts are floating across your mind, like clouds or birds or planes going across the sky, then you identify with the sky, and the thoughts are just the clouds going by. The clouds don't disturb the sky. When we go a little further and deeper into the practice, we start to see that the clouds, the thoughts, are an expression of the potential of the sky that's always there. So I'll leave you to think about that later. So thank you so much. And we're going to temporarily end the session because we're going to be picking up on the golf session afterwards. But to end the mindfulness and compassion session, we want to dedicate the benefit of that practice. So even though the practice was intended to go out and the compassion practice was for the benefit of others, we want whatever benefit we got from the practice, we want to extend that out and share that with others. So you can repeat after me or use your own words. May the practice I've just done be of benefit to others as well as myself. And if you're feeling particularly generous or want to cultivate generosity, you can say, may the practice I've just done be of even more benefit to others than to myself. So thank you very much for participating in this mindfulness and compassion meditation. And we'll be doing this in about 2 more weeks.